Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Osaski, and I'm the Director of Marketing for your Visitor and Convention Bureau. Thanks for being here and participating with us this morning. We are pleased to be hosting this first in a series of free webinar training sessions for your business in coordination with our friends at Miles Partnership. The quality of your business's online presence on Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, and other platforms plays a critical role in our community's appeal. How your businesses look online is an important part of how Fort Myers islands, beaches, and neighborhoods look when a visitor is planning a trip. Okay, so just some quick notes before we get started this morning. The presentation will run about 40 or 45 minutes, give or take, so that leaves us plenty of time at the end for questions. Please just use the question or chat feature to ask anything you'd like, and we'll address those at the end of the webinar. We're also recording this morning's session, and we'll post it on leevcb.com for future reference. Now, I have the privilege of introducing our presenter this morning, Kim Palmer, the Destination Optimization Program Director at Miles Partnership. Kim has helped guide the development and industry awareness for this program since its launch 5 years ago in 2017. These efforts have helped empower destination marketing organizations like ours and travel industry businesses like yours to update and enrich their content through Google and other platforms to improve the discoverability of their communities. Previously, she's been the company's director of SEO, the director of digital marketing for the hospitality division, and she has helped launch some of the industry's first destination marketing websites. Kim, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. I will pass things over to you.
Thanks, Brian, and good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here today. We're really excited to be providing this program for Lee County. And there are 4 things that we are going to go through in today's presentation. I'm going to start with the big picture. What is this concept of destination optimization, and how will it benefit Lee County's tourism efforts as well as your businesses? From there, we'll describe the free training opportunities that are coming your way, as well as 3 reasons that we focus on Google optimization as a part of this program. I'll wrap things up by talking about 5 things that your business can do today to start maximizing your visibility on these online platforms. So I want to start with the concept of destination optimization to understand where this fits into the bigger picture of destination marketing and bringing visitors to our market. And the truth is that marketing to drive demand is really only half of the equation of what influences a traveler's decision to visit our destination, as well as whether to visit your business. Through our marketing, advertising, social media awareness, we really create that interest in our market and in our business. But if the last 18 months or so have demonstrated anything, is that customer confidence is really critical to turning someone who is in that consideration stage into an actual customer. And customer confidence is really where destination optimization fits into the equation. Now, if you're anything like me, the way that you plan a vacation looks nothing like a nice, tidy, traditional marketing funnel where we start at awareness and interest and make our way down to purchase. Instead, it's a little bit of a wild ride through literally hundreds of digital touch points made up of how we choose the destinations that we visit, as well as where we're going to stay, what we're going to do, where we're going to have dinner while we're there. Now, the Lee County VCB and destination marketers really control some of the points along that journey through their destination website, their advertising, their social media channels, etc. And the same is true for your business. You have certain channels where you 100% control the messaging. You have access to the analytics. And you're probably very proactive in the awareness building that you're doing through these channels. However, the customer experience is expanding way beyond your owned channels, particularly on the Google platform, which is used for research and searching by pretty much everyone who is planning a trip. But that experience can involve TripAdvisor, Yelp, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And your business has a representation and a presence on each of these platforms. Now, is it as complete and compelling as your owned channels? Are you actively communicating with your customers on these channels? The more that you do, the better it will reflect on building that customer confidence that is actually going to turn into conversion. Now, within the concept of destination optimization, we are working with organizations such as the Lee County VCB to help them influence more of these digital touch points that make up the travel planning experience. That effort really focuses in on three objectives. The first objective is stewardship, where we are being aware of the perception of the market across these channels and working to help really support a positive perception. Vibrancy focuses in on imagery. We all know that images really factor heavily into travelers' decisions of what they want to go see and experience. So we work to increase the visibility of the destination's high quality content across these channels. And lastly is readiness. And readiness is really where your business and this educational program come in, where we're helping to prepare communities and businesses within them with the digital upskilling to be stewards of their own online representation. So I want to talk a little bit about stewardship. What does that really mean? What does that look like? Well, when we take a look at our destinations online, there's really no telling what we are going to find outside of our own channels. For example, we worked with Las Vegas, New Mexico, and found that on the Google platform, their photo gallery had lots of images in it from Las Vegas, Nevada. This destination in Colorado markets itself as the leading trout fishing destination in the state. This town exists at the convergence of two major trout fishing rivers. However, when we looked on Google Maps, one of those two rivers was completely missing from Basalt, Colorado. And so the representation in Google Maps was not living up to the messaging being put out by the destination. Not far north, up in Siesta Key last spring break, we had some frustrated residents who marked Siesta Key Beach as temporarily closed on Google. But fortunately, because the Sarasota County CVB and the County Department of Parks had control over the Google business profiles for the beaches and the parks, they were actually able to correct this incorrect information really quickly and avoid confusion for travelers. Now, in starting out this initiative with the Lee County VCB, one of the things we just recently completed was an updated audit of the businesses in the tourism space in your community. We looked at 833 businesses of all types within your tourism industry, including accommodations, restaurants, attractions, and activities. And what we did was match those listings up with the corresponding Google profile for those locations and compared the two. This allows us to see which businesses may be missing key information on Google, such as their website, hours of operation, phone number, etc. We're also able to identify whether or not the business owner has claimed and verified ownership of that listing. As a business owner, that is the first step that you have to take in order to have access to the tools that Google provides in order to manage your online listing. So specifically for Lee County, we looked at 833 businesses. We found that there were 67 that did not match up to a listing within Google Maps that ultimately need to be added to that platform. We also found that 146 of these businesses were incomplete in some manner for their key business information. And 164 out of that 833 were unclaimed by the business owner. So that gives us a great indication of the businesses that need more in-depth training on the Google Business Platform and potentially the other leading travel platforms. I will say though, Lee County is really above average for the completeness and the quality of their business listings. We've worked with the BCB over the last couple of years in the Destination Optimization Initiative. Some of you may have participated in some of the Google My Business training that was provided back in 2018. It certainly looks like a lot of the industry has been paying great attention because we are looking at about 80% of businesses in your market have been claimed by the business owner, and 80% of them are also complete. So that's going to be a great match for the webinar-based training and the Google Business Profile Checkup tool that will be provided as a part of this program. There's certainly opportunities to generate improvement. We're working with the BCB on what we call an activation to help suggest edits to missing information. You can see of the folks that were missing information in this audit, just a little bit more than half of them were actually missing their hours. Now that's really critical because hours of operation are the most often searched piece of information by customers online. And I'm sure you know that from having done it yourself. Is this place open tomorrow? What time does it close tonight? These are the types of searches that happen incredibly frequently about businesses. There were just a little bit over a quarter of those incomplete listings that were missing their website, and about 10% that were missing their phone number. So our plan is to work with these businesses to help improve the completeness of their information. Now, I wanted to speak just a little bit about vibrancy, which is the visual representation of our market across these platforms. A lot of the visual content provided on these platforms is user-generated content, photos and 360s that have been contributed by travelers, locals, people with odd senses of humor. These are just a selection of some of the interesting photos that our team has found throughout the years in the photo galleries of hotels, major attractions, parks, activities, etc. They range from somewhat humorous to bizarre, but none of them really are putting the destination's best foot forward. As a part of our efforts, everywhere we encounter images that are not a great representation of the location, we're flagging them for removal from the Google platform. But then we are also providing the high quality, beautiful images created by destination marketing organizations into the photo galleries for cities, counties, attractions, beaches, etc. In fact, you can see a beautiful shot of the lighthouse here that was done for a recent shoot in the Lee County area. So by contributing these high quality photos, we actually have measurable reach of DMO's beautiful content across the Google platform. In fact, interesting anecdote to tell you here, we have been, as Brian mentioned, working in destination optimization for about 5 years now. We've worked with over 260 destinations around the country, And part of that effort has been contributing these photos. Just this month, the viewership of those photos passed 2 billion, billion with a B, views across the Google platform. If that gives you any sense of the reach and scale of the content that's being contributed to the Google platform. In our efforts with the Lee County VCB, the VCB has been contributing photography and suggesting edits to missing data, contributing missing locations to the platform since we first started working together on this particular effort around 2018. Lee County VCB is a level 8 Google local guide, which is the program by which you can contribute content into Google. It goes up to a level 10. So as a level 8, the Lee County VCB is a trusted source of information on this platform. There have been over 4,700 images contributed to date, received over 28 million views just of those images on Google throughout Google's products, such as Maps, Search, etc. As a part of Red Tide Recovery, a couple of years ago, we did a fairly extensive street view shoot of the beaches and waterways to demonstrate on the Google platform how clean and beautiful the beaches and waterways were. There were about 54 miles of new Google Street View of beaches and waterways added as a part of that effort. So these are all ways that the Lee County VCB has contributed to the vibrancy of the community. So let's get into the free training opportunities that are available for your business. And that falls really into the readiness objective of destination optimization. How local businesses look is a really important part of how Fort Myers Island's beaches and neighborhoods look when a visitor is planning a trip. That's because platforms like Google and TripAdvisor and Yelp are primarily made up of business listings. That's the primary content on these platforms. So the more that our local businesses are claiming and managing and stewarding their representation on these platforms, the better the destination looks as a whole. So we mentioned that a lot of you out there are already familiar and working in some of these tools. And that's where we are going to put our emphasis in two virtual workshops that are focused on how, as a business owner, you can help maximize your exposure and conversion on Google as well as on other platforms. We will be doing these virtual workshops, one in May and one in June. So keep your eyes open for registrations for those. A unique aspect of this program that we're offering to all of you in the community is what we call office hours with our team here at Miles Partnership. This really grew out of the pandemic. We used to do most of our workshops in person, and by the nature of an in-person workshop, we tended to always have folks who would stay after and have individual questions of things they were having difficulty with, either in the Google platform and other places. And so we were able to help them out one-on-one. Well, it doesn't really happen in a virtual workshop, right? So we've created office hours as a way for you to book a 15, 20-minute consultation time with our team here at Miles Partnership to help you along. Maybe you're having trouble claiming your Google business profile, or you have an issue that you haven't been able to resolve or don't understand where certain content is being pulled in from. We are here to help. So you'll have access to a link to be able to book that time for one-on-one help with us. It is absolutely free. It is a part of this program. We do not provide direct support services for businesses, so there is nothing that we are, selling or promoting as a part of these one-on-one consultations. It is purely designed to help your business solve problems you may be encountering on these platforms. and to answer your questions. Now, because 80% of you have already claimed your Google Business Profile, we're providing a tool called the Google Business Profile Checkup. This is really neat. It's an online self-assessment for your business. So you'll be able to log into this using the Google account that you use to manage your business profile. And it's going to run an assessment of several things. Your profile completeness, what information you have about amenities, categories, things like that. Your performance, it's going to take a look at your visibility in search and in maps and how that has been changing over time and how it compares to your 90-day average. There's also a customer sentiment analysis. And customer sentiment is really critical to how well you do or don't rank in Google search results. Not only will this show you what your current star rating is on Google, it will provide you something, what we call the rating vector. And what the vector does is looks at your last 15 ratings on Google and compares that to your current average star rating. If that trend is either even or better than your current star rating, then you can be confident that you're doing really well. If that trend is actually lower than your current star rating, then you should be taking a look at some of the customer feedback that you're receiving. This kind of analysis is what Google's algorithms are doing when they are taking into consideration customer sentiment when they're ranking businesses. So one bad review isn't going to tank you, but if you are on a downward trend of getting consistent negative feedback, it could have a negative impact on your rank in Google. So that's why we include the rating vector within the profile. So keep an eye open for that tool. You can also run this more than once to kind of be able to gauge your performance over time. Now, for the folks that we identified that are incomplete and don't have ownership yet of their Google Business Profile, we have something called our Digital Marketing Acceleration Program. These businesses will be invited into the program to receive a detailed report card of their current representation and access to an online academy with a series of lessons that can be taken at their own pace to learn more about the process of claiming their profile, maintaining it, as well as other platforms such as TripAdvisor, Yelp, and Apple Maps. New lessons get added into that learning platform on a regular basis, and there'll be 2 live virtual events, including a kickoff and a peer Q&A session. Much like all of the businesses in the community, the participants in this program are going to have access to that one-on-one support from my team at Miles Partnership, and we're going to be doing a follow-up. So our goal is to have these businesses that have room to grow on this platform be able to work through this program, and we'll have a before and after to demonstrate the improvement in the completeness and representation there. And they'll also receive a sort of a certificate of recognition from the VCB for completing this digital marketing acceleration program. So that's the exciting news about what is going to be available for you and your business. I wanted to talk a little bit further about Google optimization and why we focus heavily on this platform in the travel space. There are really 3 key reasons why we emphasize the Google platform and why the Google platform is so critical to your business. In our space, it's because Google Travel has such a deep integration across all of Google products, which translates into a tremendous amount of reach. Google Maps has grown exponentially in the last several years as really everyone's travel companion. And lastly, Google Business Profiles are considered by customers to be the trusted source of information about a business. Now, this is Google Travel, google.com/travel. But chances are you probably have never actually gone to this page. The fact is that not too many people go directly into Google Travel through the proverbial front door, but there is a actual travel site where we can use this platform to consolidate our trip, save our hotel information, our flight information, save attractions and other activities all in one trip that we can come back to from our mobile devices or our desktops. But most customers' experience with Google Travel is coming through Google Search. And that's because Google Travel has really deep integration throughout the Google platform. So when I'm doing searches for things like flights to Fort Myers or things to do on Sanibel Island, what I'm seeing in search results are actually gateways into Google Travel. Google has an amazing flights tool that helps you compare prices and availability across multiple airline vendors, which is really front and center of what comes up in Google search. Anytime we do searches for things to do, we get recommendations of the top sites within a particular city or county. That also links directly into the Google Travel product. And in fact, as a part of destination optimization, one of the things we focus in on are those top attractions that are featured on the Google platform, because they tend to have the highest visibility in the market. Hotel Finder is also a very popular tool on the Google platform. Anytime you run a search for hotels or places to stay in a market, in addition to some advertising and some other things at the top of the page there, you do tend to get directly into the dialogue to choose your dates and the features that you're looking for in order to check availability for the market directly in Google search. So Google is really important to us in travel because of the level of integration with these travel planning products into everyday searches on the platform. I also wanted to call out Google Maps. With the rise of the use of our phones as our perpetual sidekick as a part of travel, Google has really secured ownership of that navigation and wayfinding space. Skift did a deep dive report on Google back in 2020, and even at that point, 79% of consumers who were using navigation apps as a part of their leisure travel were using Google Maps as that navigation platform. Which means as I'm navigating and discovering a market, what I'm finding are the Google listings for the locations in that area. Focusrite's travel technology survey back in 2019 found that 67% of respondents used the Maps Nearby feature as a part of researching and booking their trip. Now, at the point that this research was done back in 2019, Explore Nearby had only been available for a few months. It's now really become deeply integrated into the Maps product, so that for every destination we look at, we're immediately presented with options to look for restaurants, hotels, parks, and attractions directly within the Google Maps app. Lastly, customer confidence and trust in the Google platform is the other piece of what makes it so important to us as businesses. Each quarter for the last 10 years, Miles Partnership and Destination Analysts have done a piece of research called the State of the American Travel. Every quarter, we are doing a survey on traveler sentiment across the US. And on a quarterly basis, we have unique focuses on that research. Last year, within our technology edition, we did a special focus on the trust in business information and reviews that travelers have. This is a pretty long survey, so I'm not going to go into all of the details, but a couple important headlines as it pertains to your business and your Google business profile. We asked the question of how trustworthy does the customer feel business information is on these platforms, such as hours, menu, location, services. And we asked about Google, TripAdvisor, Apple Maps, Yelp, and Facebook. And you can see that almost 47% said that the Google Maps data was usually trustworthy, and another 24% said that it was always trustworthy. Google really leading across those platforms, with TripAdvisor and Apple Maps being considered about evenly trustworthy as terms of business information. We also asked the question in such a way of, if you had to decide which of these platforms is the most trustworthy when looking for business information. And in that case, over 61% said that Google was the most trustworthy source of information about a business, followed by TripAdvisor, Yelp, Apple, and at the very bottom of the list there was Facebook. But all of the other options by a pretty sizable margin there. We asked a similar question about ratings and reviews in terms of how trustworthy customers are finding the feedback from other customers on these platforms. Google was also in the lead for this one, with over 63% considering Google Maps usually trustworthy or always trustworthy. But you can see TripAdvisor rated a good bit higher when it came to reviews and ratings specifically. Again, when asked which one was really the most trustworthy, more than 50% said Google Maps was, or Google products were the most trustworthy in terms of reviews and ratings, but definitely a much higher percentage share for TripAdvisor in the reviews and ratings space. Not surprising, since TripAdvisor is really foundationally built around those reviews and tend to have the longest, most in-depth reviews provided by customers on that platform. So I want to wrap up today by calling out 5 things that you can do today in terms of best practices to help maximize your exposure on Google, as well as beyond on other platforms. Now, at the end of the day, your Google business profile is likely the single largest source of organic exposure for your business online. I'll give you a case study here. This is the Independence Visitor Center in Philadelphia. It's the visitor center right outside the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. And in 2018, when they put together all of their online exposure, their website visits, their social media views, their search exposure, their maps exposure, etc., they had a total audience of about 25.5 million. But when you crack open that data and look at the details, 22.5 million of that viewership was coming from Google products, Google search results, and Google Maps, made up 85% of that location's total online audience. So that means that 85% of the folks who were looking for and encountering their visitor center were seeing this first, their Google business profile. So this was really the initial face, the initial impression, and the initial information that these folks were finding, which emphasizes how important it is to really treat your Google business profile as the front door, as the first encounter a business or a customer or a potential customer may have with your business. Research shows us that better business profiles are going to drive more exposure for your business and more engagement from customers. Research done through Google and Ipsos found that Google profiles who were complete and up to date were 2.7 times more likely to be considered reputable by customers. Basically, over 2.5 times more likely to have that customer confidence and trust. They were also 70% more likely to attract location visits and 50% more likely to lead to a purchase. One of the questions we get asked all the time is, how do I show up in the local pack of Google search results? When people are searching for restaurants, Italian restaurants, Chinese restaurants, hotels, attractions, the search results tend to focus on something called the local pack, which is a combination of a map as well as 3 to 5 business listings. I get asked all the time, how do I get into the local pack? What influences which businesses show up there? Well, there are really 3 factors: distance, relevance, and prominence. Now, frankly, distance you don't have any control over, and it is probably the largest of those 3 ranking factors. If I'm doing a search for something either near me or with a particular city name, the search results are going to take into account the location of my device or the physical center of that city or county or location that I've searched and go out from there. And Google will always prefer locations that are closer to either the center of where I've searched for or where I'm located. All of that is completely out of your control as a business, except to make sure that your location data is correct. Relevance has to do with how well you match the search for your location. And that's where having a really complete description, filling out all of your amenities, services, and categories is important. The more of those items that you have filled in, the more likely you're going to match someone's search. So if my search was for pet-friendly restaurants, but I had neglected to select pet-friendly in my listing, I'm not going to show up as relevant to that search, even though I may be. The last piece is prominence, and prominence has to do with your reviews and ratings. The frequency, quantity, and quality of the reviews that you're receiving has an influence on how well you rank in Google results. I also want to call out that while your business profile is really the singular source of business information about your location on Google, you only have one listing that shows up across maps, search results. It is the content that is used in voice results in your Google Home or in your car. That content is really only coming from one of 2 places. And that is either being directly managed by you through Google Business Profile Manager, formerly known as Google My Business. They changed the name last year. Or through what's called local guides, which are essentially your customers. Google assumes that if a business is not maintaining its own information, then its most recent customers are the next best source of information. So this is user-generated content. This is also the platform by which the Lee County BCB has been contributing photography and helping to improve completeness. Now, if you think you know everything about the Google platform already, I just want you to keep in mind that Google changes constantly. As I just called out, what we have all known and loved as Google My Business, or GMB, for the last 5 years was recently renamed Google Business Profile Manager. But what's more important than that is Google has announced that the app for Google My Business is being sunsetted this year. It is going to be removed and it's going to be replaced. But it is in fact not going to be replaced by an app. While Google Business Profile Manager will remain available to manage your information, particularly if you manage multiple locations, Google is trying to guide everyone into making their business listing updates directly through Google search. So if you have claimed your listing and are logged in to that account and search for your business, you're going to see a dialog that looks like this. It says your business on Google. This is our office as an example here. And you can see things like editing your profile, responding to customers, even initiating ad buys will be able to be accomplished directly in the search results platform versus then going into an app or into Google My Business. So this is a fairly large change, and we expect the shutdown of the app to happen by the end of this calendar year. So we always have to stay on our toes. There's always new things that we need to learn about keeping our business complete on these platforms. So wrapping up here with the 5 things I recommend that you do to maximize your exposure. Those are claim your business listing, first and foremost, update your hours, check relevant attributes, add fresh pictures on a regular basis, and engage consistently. The first step on Google, and frankly also on Apple Maps, on Yelp, and on TripAdvisor and other platforms, is always to claim ownership of your listing on those platforms. They vary a little bit in process, but essentially you have to raise your hand to be the manager of the location and verify that you are a rightful representative of that location, usually through a phone call or other sort of validation step. Make sure you're keeping your core information up to date, name, category, address, phone number, website. And I will say again, hours are the absolutely most important piece of information that your customers are looking for. Number 3 is for you to check your relative attributes. Google is adding new attribute options to the platform on a regular basis. So if you haven't checked yours in a while, it's worth going in and seeing what else is in there. For example, in the last year or 2, there's been a great deal of health and safety feature attributes added. And you may have noticed recently that accommodations now have a little icon that say Eco Certified. Eco Certified comes from having filled out the sustainability attributes for your hotel, as well as identifying any eco certifications that your property may have. By filling those out is how you get that little eco certified green leaf. And that really only just came out in the last several months. You should also be making sure that you're adding fresh pictures on a regular basis, at least monthly. One of the mistakes I see businesses make frequently is they have 5 or 10 great photos of their business. They upload them when they first claim their listing, and 2 years later, they've never added a new photo. And Google's going to look at that as a business that is kind of stagnant. Lastly, these platforms provide a lot of opportunity for us to engage with customers, whether it is by posting events or special offers, or by responding to reviews and answering customer questions. Just make sure that you're engaging consistently with your customers on these platforms. 80% of unhappy customers can be won over with the right response from the business. So we're getting ready to wrap up here today. Really very excited to be providing these educational opportunities for your businesses. Keep an eye on your inbox. There will be registrations coming for the webinar training sessions in May and June. If your business is in need of the digital marketing acceleration program, there will be an invitation for you to register for that program. You will all receive access to the Google Business Profile Checkup tool, as well as the booking link to set up office hours with our team here at Miles Partnership, should you want us to help you out with something or answer some questions. So with that, Brian, I'm going to wrap it up here, but we have just about 15 minutes left for questions, if anyone has any.
Hi, folks. We do have one question. Reminder to everyone who is live with us, if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the questions box, and Kim and Brian will be on standby here to answer them for you. But we do have a question from Sharon. How do we check that we own our Google listing?
The best way to do that is to use Google Maps and go into Google Maps either via the app or desktop. And if you see an icon that looks like a shield with a check mark, and it will say next to this, own this business or claim this business. That if that is there in your listing, then it has not been claimed yet. And I do intentionally say to do this via Google Maps, because if you do it via search, almost every listing has the own this business question on it, which is confusing. They changed that last year, I think to create the ability for multiple managers of a location to get involved. To me, it just creates confusion. We have always seen that if you see that check mark in maps, it's an indication that the business is not claimed.
Okay, we have another question here from Colleen. She asks, what is the process for linking a booking engine to Google Hotels meta search so the hotel can display accurate pricing and availability?
That's a long question to answer in this format, but the first step is to confirm that the booking engine that you use for your accommodation is one of the approved integrations that Google has, which is probably most of them at this point. Certainly, first you have to have your listing claimed. But then within Google Business Profile Manager, there should be a section for bookings, which will allow you to sort of initiate that integration process. That's a pretty simple answer to a complicated question. That's a great candidate for something if you want to set up one of those office hours calls with our team. Our hospitality team at Miles does this for our accommodations clients on a regular basis and can get a little bit more into the details of how that gets done.
Great, thank you. And a question here from Lisa. She's asking, how exactly does adding new photos help us? And how do the attributes help us?
So photos, we have seen this because Miles is also works with individual hotels, restaurants, spas. We have direct management access into quite a number of Google business profiles that it's our responsibility as their agency to maintain. One of the things we found anecdotally in the fact that we were contributing images on a regular basis was that the locations that were getting that were updating photos regularly, we're seeing between a 10 and a 30% increase in their visibility in search and maps. Our best understanding of why that is happening is that it is, if you think about Google algorithms, they're looking for indicators and trends. And the fact that a business is engaged in contributing photos seems to be a fairly high indicator to Google that that business is active, that things are going on, that there's a customer experiences really happening there versus a location that hasn't added a new photo in a year. So it's a signal basically to Google. I don't want to say that it's a guarantee necessarily, but it's definitely a trend we've seen in our own work and does seem to be a positive signal to Google. Attributes help because two reasons. If you look in the searches and filters that are available in Google, those searches and filters all align with attributes that are in Google Business Profile Manager. So if I'm an accommodation, you'll see that there are options in there for things like pet friendly, whether breakfast is provided, things like that. So if I am an accommodation owner and I'm pet friendly, if I haven't selected pet friendly and someone looks for pet friendly, I'm not going to come up because I haven't filled in the attribute. So I'm not going to show up in the right searches. The other reason is a little bit broader. You can have up to 10 categories for your business. This is particularly related to things such as restaurants. So I may be a fine dining restaurant. That may be my primary category. But I may also be a seafood restaurant, a steak restaurant, an organic restaurant. And if I identify myself as all of these other categories, it's more likely that someone searching for a seafood restaurant is going to find me if I have categorized myself as such as well.
Hey, Kim, along the same lines of the still images, we also have a 360 virtual tour program available for our industry partners through a company we work with called Threshold 360. Does a 360 virtual tour also have a big impact on a business's presence on Google?
Yeah, I think anytime that fresh content is getting added into a profile and that a business is demonstrating that it's sort of proactively in there and keeping things current works out really well. Customers really like the virtual tours too. I'm getting, particularly when you're traveling, kind of getting a sneak peek of what the experience you're going to have is usually very popular with customers.
There's a location here in downtown Fort Myers called the Butterfly Estates, and I recently received a report from last year. They were the #1 most highly viewed 360 tour that we had participate with us. And going back to what you were saying about the power of Google, 20 million views of that virtual tour at this tiny little location in downtown Fort Myers. So. Yeah, stay active, right? I think that's the takeaway. Stay active with your listing.
That concludes the
Amanda,
questions.
did we have any other questions come through?
I don't. That does conclude the questions that were typed into the question box. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Kim. I've heard you present numerous times, and I feel like I learned something new every single time. So thanks again for being with us again this morning. Can you quickly, just as we're wrapping up here, remind everyone of next steps?
Yes, basically keep an eye on your emails because there will be registrations coming out for the webinars that will be available in May and in June. If you are a business who needs the acceleration program, you'll look for an invite to register for that program. And we'll also be sharing access to the Google Business Profile or Checkup tool and the ability to connect with our team here at Miles with your individual questions in office hours. So those are the 4 things to be looking for coming up in the next couple of months here.
Super, Kim. Thanks so much. And again, we will post today's webinar, the recording of the webinar at LeeVCB. We also able to post your presentation, Kim, as well?
Yes, of course.
Fantastic. So we'll get that posted either later today or tomorrow. And of course, myself and my team is available if anyone has any questions. Just want to give one more big thanks to Kim Palmer with Miles, and again to all of our partners. Thanks to all of you for being here with us this morning. I hope you find some value in this information, and we appreciate your partnership. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again next time. Have a great day.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.